So I'll figure out a way. But anyways, hey everyone. Welcome to With Purpose podcast. I'm Johanna Tropiano. I am your host and I am the COO of Purpose Jewelry International Sanctuary. And we are so excited to have our incredible guest, Dr. Jacqueline Winkelman. I'm going to give you a little bit of background on Dr. Jack, and then we'll get into it. And you can find her website at www.drjack.com. And of course, we'll have all of the information where you can find her and connect with her in our show notes when we publish the podcast. But Dr. Jacqueline Winkelman is a pediatric physician. She is a physician with Children's Hospital in Orange County. She's had several positions there. Most recently, she held the position of Chief of Staff for CHOC. She's been awarded the Physician of Excellence in Pediatrics by Orange County Medical Association 2013 and 2018. She was selected as a top pediatrician by the International Association of Pediatricians, leading pediatricians of the world. And that's just a few things about Dr. Jacqueline. I know there's so much more, and we're going to get into that today. So I'm super excited to have you as one of our guests. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, we're so excited. And I feel like if you are a mom and you have kids and you have some questions that you want to ask Dr. Jack, just drop them in the comments and I'll be able to get to them. And we'll have some time at the end of the podcast, hopefully, to answer questions that any of you might have. So, all right, let's get into it. So Dr. Jack, I know that what you want to talk about today, and we'll get this recorded at the end, but the theme of today and talking about with purpose is being a pediatrician with purpose. So maybe just start by telling everyone a little bit about yourself. I know you wear many hats, so talk about all those hats that you wear.
Sure, thank you, and again, thank you for having me. And it's a pleasure to be with you today. I am International Sanctuary is very special to me, so I'm very, very happy to be here. But yes, I do wear a few hats, as most moms do these days. First and foremost, I am a wife of almost 30 years and mom of two. I have a 20-year-old daughter and a 15-year-old boy. So kind of going through that whole adolescence, young adulthood part of child rearing, and very satisfying and sometimes challenging. But that is my most important role. I have been a pediatrician. I'm actually a pediatric hospitalist, which means I'm a hospital-based pediatrician. And I've been at CHOC and CHOC Admission for almost 20 years. And yes, I have had several leadership roles, including Chief of Staff most recently, and participated in many of the hospital committees. I also work with young athletes. I do sports nutrition for young athletes, and I work with teams in the area and throughout the country and individuals, and try to optimize and just get them to see the relationship between food and performance and growth and development, because they're going through so much more than an adult athlete or a child that doesn't play sports. So it's important for them to get to know their body. And I feel like these are lessons that they're going to take with them way beyond their sports playing years. And I'm also a medical advisor for several companies that make pediatric products. And I feel like I have a completely different responsibility to patients and parents when I'm trying to advise these companies and help them create products that are safe, that are needed, and that will really be beneficial to that population. So yeah, very full life at this point. I can't complain. So
that's awesome. That it sounds fun. And I know we have talked before about one company in particular that you're working with formula, which, you know, for me as a mom who struggled with breastfeeding, my child and not producing enough milk and all of those things was so important to try to find really good formula for my daughter when she was a baby. And so, and there are just a lack of, you know, some good options out there. So it's really cool that there's some new there are new products already in the works for that if you're a
Yeah.
breastfeeding mom and struggling in that area.
Yeah, and I think that the companies, especially newer startups, their companies actually are with a purpose. They have a mission. They're mission-driven companies, and that's my favorite thing about, particularly about Bobby, the infant formula company. They are there. They exist to provide not only a good product, but also to help end the stigma of formula feeding and help change the conversation around feeding an infant for everyone. So yeah, it is quite gratifying to work on that side of pediatrics, because it's something so different than what I see. I work in the hospital and I'm in the medical surgical unit and in the ICU and in high risk deliveries, and it's a lot of relatively sick children, and this is just a completely different side of my life. So
yeah,
that's great.
That's awesome. That's so cool. Now, when did you know you wanted to be a pediatrician?
So that's a really interesting question. I was actually born and raised in Puerto Rico. I am Puerto Rican. My parents, grandparents were Puerto Rican, clearly European descent before then. But I lived there for 18 years until I moved away for college. But I knew specifically I wanted to be a pediatrician since probably around the age of 10. And the reason was because my mother's uncle was one of the first pediatric surgeons on the island. And I was with him all day long. He took me to the operating rooms. He took me to the hospital, things that would never be allowed nowadays. But back in the day, he did whatever he wanted at the hospital. So I got to have a really, really close, real exposure to medicine and pediatrics. But my favorite part was that he would do his post-op rounds. Actually, there were house calls. So we would get in the car and go to the middle of the island, and these families just adored him. And they paid him. He was never a wealthy guy. They paid him with chickens and eggs and whatever these people had. And he was so happy. He was so well loved and respected. There was just something there. I'm like, okay, this is something that I see myself doing. It's, pediatrics is not a career you go into for money. It is certainly on the lower end of the pay scale for medicine in general. You do it because you're passionate about children. And to me, taking care of children allows you to take care of an entire family. So it's really just more about the one kid, I love kids, and I think in general, pediatric or doctors will tend to gravitate either to adult medicine or pediatric medicine, and we're both terrified of the other. So if you ask a lot of adult doctors, they will say absolutely no children because they're scary to them. And to me, it's my comfort zone. It's where I feel I can give the best, and love my world of medicine, my world of pediatrics, and especially the medical missions. I forgot to say that is definitely a hat that I enjoy. I probably forgot about it because with COVID, haven't been able to do it in a couple of years, but I do go on medical missions, especially to Spanish-speaking countries, because it's my first language, and I feel like I can offer so much more to those families. There's a group from CHOC that goes all over the world a couple times a year. So that's been a great part. But that's kind of how my love for pediatrics started. It was with my uncle.
What a beautiful vision and model you had as a young girl.
Yeah.
And honestly, just like a beautiful basis of foundation for you to see the selflessness and all of that, obviously, that your uncle displayed. It's really cool. Really cool story. So I know we've talked about this a little bit, but what excites you most about the work you do? And I think of living lives with purpose, there's an excitement there, when we are coming from a place of purpose, when we're acting out of a place of purpose, it creates an excitement in what we do. So what excites you the most about the work that you're doing now and the work in pediatrics?
Children excite me. Honestly, so honest. They're so just free of any kind of inhibition or little voices in their head. They'll just say it how it is, and I love that about children. They take everything in stride. They don't complain. They don't know any better. They just I mean, I see adults and children dealing with the same types of illnesses, and just the way they respond to life is so different, and they get better. I mean, children are very resilient, so it's quite satisfying, especially in my line of work, where I see the sicker kids, and they come in, and in a few days they're back to their baselines, and that is so gratifying to be able to send the little kid home that came looking so sad and totally happy, and going about their day to day. But to me, another thing that I really, really love, and that I feel like it's my purpose in pediatrics, is to have intention with every interaction that I have. And in my day to day, the interaction is going to be with a child, with their family, with my coworkers, with the rest of the hospital staff, administrators, and with the community. So it just kind of goes beyond my little four walls, and then of course even more so in the medical missions and going abroad. So just the fact that you can impact, and with the companies, I feel like I have a much bigger impact on the future of kids and their parents, and that is certainly exciting.
I love what you said about the intention piece, because I think that that's so important, especially in thinking through what it means to live a life of purpose. And I think that comment that you said there really hit the nail on the head of really just doing everything, whether it's, cleaning your bathroom at home, or whether it's, cooking a meal for your family, or whether it's interacting with sick children at a hospital. But it really just always comes back to this sense of intention. And are we, are we acting out of intention? Are we living out of intention? Are we doing things out of intention? And for me, I think that that's such a good baseline, a good place to start. And I mean, I remember early in my career when I was trying to figure out, like, what am I going to do? And I was selling pharmaceuticals. I was in a completely different place, and I didn't feel like it was a very intentional career at the time. But that's kind of what it always came back to, is I can choose to interact with this person with intention today. And I can choose to, and that's where finding that purpose starts, I think,
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. It doesn't really matter what it is you're doing, as long as you are doing it with purpose. So yeah, it just changes everything. It changes your mentality. For me, a lot of it is in my hospital work was translated into empathy. And I feel like, as a hospital doctor, you can get burned out. I mean, we're doing hospital shifts that are 16-hour night shifts and 24-hour weekend shifts, nights, holidays. You're away from your family, quite a bit. And, parents can be demanding. It's the harder part of it. The children are easy. It's dealing with the stress of the parent. But to me, especially after the first few years, I started to realize that this is my purpose, is to help these parents and to feel empathy for what they're going through. And, clearly by the time, as a mom, I know by the time you end up in the hospital, you've already haven't slept for a week. You are in an environment that you have no control over. And, your child is miserable, and that's the worst that you can feel as a mom. So I really made an effort to partner with the parent on treatment plans and setting expectations, because I feel like that's the key to happiness in a hospital, is setting the right expectations. And so for me, purpose really translated into empathy.
Yeah, that's awesome. There's a quote that I love that I came across. I mean, it's from C.S. Lewis, and I came across it several years ago, maybe like even a decade ago at this point, where he talks about, and I can't remember what book it's from, but he talks about how every single person that you come in contact with is not just a person, right? They are immortal.
Mm-hmm.
And so every interaction that you have with that person, you're either pushing them a
Yep.
little bit toward a beautiful immortality or a devastating immortality. So like
Yeah.
you're either speaking life or death over that person.
Yeah.
And it's every interaction. And that really puts things into
Yeah.
perspective. I think even with COVID,
Mm-hmm.
like even seeing, the people who work at our grocery stores, the
Yep.
people who are, it's like before they were just there. And
Yeah.
now it's like, wow, that going in through the grocery line has become so much more of an empathetic
Mm-hmm.
and purposeful thing for me because
Mm-hmm.
these people were risking their lives
Yeah.
essentially for us
Yeah.
during
Yep.
COVID to keep our toilet paper and
Yep.
our groceries, like all of these things. But I think that's so true. That empathy piece is really, really a beautiful point that you made.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're going to shift gears a little bit. But I know a couple of the things that you have worked on and have become passionate about has dealt with the opioid crisis and
Yes.
the impact that the opioid crisis has had on children. So can you talk a little bit more about that? I mean, it is a crisis. I
Yes.
remember really seeing this even in my time selling pharmaceuticals in
Mm-hmm.
rural West Tennessee.
Mm-hmm.
Before it really started to blow up, you could
Yeah.
go into places and know that this was a huge issue. So talk a little bit about your work there and why you became passionate about that topic.
Yeah. Yes, it has consumed quite a bit of my administrative life in the hospital, actually. And it all started because I was in the hospital all the time, and at nighttime we admit all the patients to the intensive care unit, and started noticing that we had quite a few overdose admissions. And when we started looking at it, in 1 year we had 62, which is more than one a week. Adolescents that had overdosed intentionally or unintentionally. But we started looking more and more at what were they overdosing with, and opioids were by far number one in our area. And it was definitely an epidemic in Orange County that I was not aware of. I think my oldest was probably in middle school at the time. And the team of nurses at one of the things I love about Chalk Mission in particular is a small community hospital, and we work together on everything. And so the nurses started bringing up things to me, and we started looking more and more and started to looking for resources to learn about what was going on in our community. Why are these kids ending up here every week when our sister hospital 40 minutes north had a fourth of the admissions? So it was very local to us. And even though it's certainly widespread, but we felt it every day. And then we started noticing that, yes, not only it was very prevalent in our own community, but we started looking at the number of prescribed pills from our own hospital for these kids to go home on. And the numbers were astronomical. I mean, we had some surgeons prescribing 100 pills for a kid that had a simple appendectomy. Things that just, I think the issue came because a few years earlier, there was a huge push for pain control. And pain was named the fifth vital sign, along with heart rate and respiratory rate and temperature and blood pressure and pain. And so I think as physicians, we were drilled, we had to do pain, continuing medical education, so nobody could be in pain. And if the pain was more than 4 out of 10, we got to medicate them. So, I think the pendulum just kind of swung all the way to the other side, and then we're just giving these pills away like they're candy. And so as a group, as a hospital, we decided that the one small thing that we could do was decrease the accessibility of these pills in our community. So we rolled out massive education to all the different departments: surgical, medical, nursing, PAs, anyone that could prescribe a medication. We had tons of education for the parent and for the adolescent that was going home on these medications. And in a matter of, I think it was 6 months to a year, we decreased the number of pills by more than 50% that were
Wow.
prescribed. So it was definitely made an impact. And every few years, now it's part of our onboarding when a new doctor comes on the medical staff. They are made aware of this issue here because we have a lot of doctors coming from all over the country, and we make a point of making sure that they know that we have different parameters. We change our policies in the emergency room to only prescribe 48 to 72 hours worth of medication and no more.
Right.
And so, yeah, we took some concrete steps to try to make a difference. And yes, the number of admissions has decreased significantly. Not necessarily just because of that, but I know it was part of it, because we had kids coming in and out and getting discharged on opioids all the time with no education, no, this is how you dispose of them, this is, these are the dangers. And then I was part of a documentary that is called Do No Harm, that was from physicians to physicians, and just talking about responsible prescribing and the responsibility we have in controlling this epidemic. Because we like to blame the pharmaceutical companies and everyone else, but I think every step of the way can make a change to improve the outcomes.
Yeah, on that note, do you have some recommendations for resources for anyone who might be listening, are struggling with addiction, or their children are struggling with addiction in this way? Where would you send them initially to get help for something like this?
Well, honestly, in my world, I'm dealing with adolescents and younger, and I think the best place to start is your pediatrician. Because they know your child, they know your family. There may be mental health issues. I feel like it's just one of those things that is much better if it's tailored to your particular child. Yes, there's national associations of addiction and mental health. They have hotlines, and they even have hotlines specifically for opioid addiction within each state. And I'll send you the link if you don't put it in the show notes too.
Yeah, we'll put it in the show notes.
But I really encourage the idea of, now in pediatricians' offices, they're doing mental health screens on every visit. And so I feel like we're much more aware of the mental health / addiction, and even if it's not addiction, just opioid use in general. And hopefully we can intervene before it gets to that point.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Switching gears here a little bit, and talking about another passion that you have is, the issue of human trafficking, and which is, some of the work that it is the work that International Sanctuary does. And so can you talk about how you became passionate about human trafficking and the work that you've done around that issue?
Yeah, absolutely. It was kind of serendipitous. I was at church one day, and they had a little, video of this organization called International Sanctuary, and they were selling jewelry outside. And I was at a point in my career, honestly, that I was looking for more purpose. That's exactly what I was looking for. I was looking to do something that was meaningful, not just for me, but for others. And yes, I was doing my pediatrics and my medical missions and all of that. But when I saw this video and I saw these girls, I'm like, okay, this is, I need to do this. So I reached out and got more and more involved. And I've only been part of it for a few years. I want to say a couple of years. But again, trying to figure out, what one person can do made me want to translate some of this information and knowledge back to my world, which is my hospital. And with the help of Lisa Murdoch, an amazing nurse that I work with and good friends with, and she's very passionate about human trafficking, has been involved with it for many years. We are creating some tools in the hospital to educate practitioners in all, from the emergency room all the way, to the hospital and beyond. I've done talks for our community pediatricians to try to identify kids at risk, but also Lisa created an actual screening tool that we use in the hospital now to try to identify, and a lot of, trauma-informed type of interaction with potential victims, so that we can intervene appropriately and not cause
Safely.
more harm. I think, in the world of pediatrics, in the American Academy of Pediatrics, trauma-informed education has been huge. Now, of course, with COVID, even more so, because mental health has been, so impacted by this disease in our population. But I think we're all very sensitive to it now, and it's been very well received. I have, pediatricians after my medical staff talk, just ask for more resources, and so we have sent them some, and it's been really great. I love to throw parties, and that's great. So I've had jewelry parties at my house, but I feel like I needed to do something that was more specific to practicing pediatrics with a purpose.
What I love so much about your story and the way that you approached this, because I think what happens a lot of times, and I've been working now in human rights and anti-trafficking specifically for 15 years, and I think that it can feel like such an overwhelming problem. It's a $150 billion industry. It impacts millions and millions of people, and it can feel like such an overwhelming problem that you can feel paralyzed and almost like, oh my gosh, this is so much bigger than me. There isn't really what can I do? And what I love so much about your story is you were able to find a connection between the work that you do and who you are as a person, and as a mom, and your career, and you were able to bridge the issues together and find a way to do that. And I think that that's super inspiring, because there's no shortage of work that you can do in this area, right? But it's kind of just finding your niche and what is it that you do, and then how can you kind of bridge that between this issue that you care about and also the work that you do, and is there a way to combine them?
I agree. I think as long as you're inspired, it doesn't matter what your profession is. It doesn't matter what you do. I have friends that have been touched by the human trafficking story because I have introduced them to them. This is way, outside of the hospital, and my stay-at-home mom friends have now, made their own little networks of trying to educate other moms, trying to create awareness and help, but put jewelry together, and they get together on their own. I don't even go half the time because I can't, but it's been really nice to see how people, you got to work within your network, and who you relate with. Everybody has a role to play in this. Every single person, even my daughter, who's a film student, she actually created the video for the screening tool for the hospital. So, everybody can contribute in their own way. So I agree. I think it sometimes feels like, wow, this is way more than one person can handle. But if every person just puts in their little piece, the authorities will do their thing, and kind of the big organizations will do their thing, but really it's a grassroots type of movement that needs to happen.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's awesome. So let's shift gears, because we're coming down to the end here. And we've covered quite a few things in this, with and some tough topics with the opioid crisis, the issues of human trafficking, but share a little bit about what you do for fun. What are your go-to fun hobbies? What do you enjoy?
I am a foodie, and I am a hostess. I love entertaining. I think this is definitely my Hispanic heritage. Food and wine and having friends and family over these are the ways that we show love as Hispanics in our culture. And so it's always been very very important to me. And I do like to have my parties, but I love the outdoors.
COVID's been
And
really tough for you.
COVID was extremely tough for me. And actually that was the hardest part for me, was not being able to have people over, not being able to see my friends and in my own house and just shower them with food. But yeah, that's probably my favorite thing to do.
Do you have a favorite recipe that maybe we can share? I totally put you on the spot here.
I have many recipes I could share. Yes. Interestingly, I actually tend to gravitate more to Spanish, South American, Indian, Middle Eastern. I love just ethnic foods, even more so than Puerto Rican food, I think, because, which of course is ethnic, but not to me. Because the ingredients are a little bit harder to find here in California. But yeah, I definitely will share. I have a few favorites.
That'd be so fun. That'd be awesome. Maybe we'll put one of Dr. Jack's favorite recipes in the show notes as well, so you can look forward to that. And then last question, I want to end. What is your favorite piece of purpose jewelry? I see you're wearing some earrings right now. Yes.
Yes, these are my favorite. I've seen you while we're both wearing them. Yeah, I wear these almost every single day.
Yeah.
The Baroque little hoops. But I have lots of jewelry. It's kind of fun, cute, easy to wear. It's very much my style. So I probably
also Oprah's favorite piece of
jewelry. Yes, and all of my friends and family have some piece of purpose jewelry.
That's awesome. I've been working now for purpose jewelry for 8 weeks, and mine are already getting close to that.
Yeah.
So that's awesome.
Good.
Well, this has been so much fun.
Thank you for having me.
Those who have viewed, thank you so much, Dr. Jack, for giving us some of your time. And I would love for you to just end with the statement we talked about, and yeah, and then we'll sign off.
Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Jack, and I'm a pediatrician with a purpose.
Amazing. All right. Thank you guys so much, and we will see you next month.
Thank you.
All right. Take care.
Bye-bye. You too.